The brother I sponsor is a pervert. He always came to borrow my bathroom for a long time. Then I was betrayed by my boyfriend and my best friend. My brother crouched in front of me and begged, "Sister, I'm very good. I can be your servant. You pay the deposit for the engagement party. It's all joint property at the end of the day anyway." Ah, I have something else. My boyfriend hung up the phone hastily. I didn't notice his unusual tone. I was looking at the figure at the bathroom door. The neighbor's brother stumbled like he was lost in thought when he heard the words engagement party. His face was grim, his eyes chilly. "Sister is getting engaged? What's wrong with you?" Before the words left my mouth, my body suddenly tilted. Before I could struggle, Reese had already tied me to the single sofa. "I want you to break up with Jet. Is sister willing to fulfill me? Jet is my boyfriend and we are getting engaged in 3 days. How can we break up?" Seeing my silence, he collapsed his shoulders slightly and dropped to one knee in front of me. A cotton blanket was placed at the bottom of my feet. "Reese is a brother I sponsor. He was a senior in high school and I was a junior when we first met. I went back to my high school as the representative of the outstanding graduates to attend the school festival and saw Reese being bullied in the corner. In a fit of passion, I scolded those bad kids. He wasn't very tall or thin then, and his skin was a distinctly malnourished yellow. He was curled up against the wall trembling, and I hugged him heartily. Later in the school leader to communicate to know, he is an orphan, usually rely on their own garbage and social relief to live. He can now normal high school, it is the school to give him a tuition waiver." The school leader sighed, "This child is withdrawn and gloomy, it is difficult to communicate. The school has also punished those who bullied him, but it can't withstand one crop after another. Ah. If you don't want to have the next crop, wouldn't it be better to pull out the grass and get rid of the roots?" I said something back, seemingly unintentionally, but the head of the school should take it to heart. Because I came back this time, after all, donated a playground and library for the school. Thanks to talent and luck, let me catch the Nedison dividend, just 3 years on the writer rich list. Although it's not quite a G world, but Reese, I manage. After the school festival, I contacted the school to sponsor him. He tried to contact me several times, but I refused. I funded him just to give him a relatively fair place to live and had no intention of getting involved with him. It wasn't until 2 years later, when he was granted early admission to a top university, that I realized that I had accidentally sponsored a genius. The day he came to me, I was running late for a date with Jet. Still, I froze when I saw the handsome teenager with the outstanding posture. If he hadn't introduced himself, I wouldn't have recognized him at all. He stared at me cautiously. "Sister, I'm here to thank you." I hurriedly interrupted him. "The one you should thank most is yourself. Your life has just begun, so don't look back." We haven't contacted each other since then. But a week ago, he was on the major news for developing an emerging game. Not just because of the forward-thinking nature of the game's algorithms, but also because he had only been in college for half a year, and was simply a genius among geniuses. On the same day the news broke, he moved in across the street from my house. He came to my house every night to borrow the bathroom. He borrowed it especially long when Jet was there. I felt a little awkward about it, but every time I tried to turn him down, he looked lonely and miserable. Obviously broad shoulders and narrow waist of 1.88 m, that demonic face through a stream of wind flow gas. But the eyes are wet, the bottom of the red eye inexplicably soft. As if there is another person living in my body. Let me not reject him, don't hurt him. But now, I tried to return him. He rubbed my feet delicately, but it was like he was suppressing anger. "I told you, he's not a good person." He said that a lot. But Jet and I have been in love for 3 years, and I think I know the difference between good and bad. Do you? Do you think you're a good person when you're doing this to me now? I questioned him. He stalled slightly and looked at my sister begrudgingly. "I'm good. I can be your servant. As long as you break up." I looked away and stopped looking at him. After a long time, he got up. "Hungry?" Saying that, he touched my head and turned to the kitchen. A book commemorative coin inadvertently shunned out of his pocket. 001 is my year to participate in the school celebration when he gave him. The corners of the coin are smooth and there is no rust, as if it has been touched often. It's been 3 years, has he been carrying it around? I don't know where he threw the cell phone. This house has 2 units in one staircase. The sound insulation is very good in the upper and lower floors. Calling for help is impossible. So I can only find a breakthrough from him. Half an hour later, he brought 3 dishes and a soup to the coffee table, actually all my favorite food. Spoonfuls of it were fed into my mouth. I softened my tone in disgust with him. Reese, can you let go of me first? Eating like this will give you indigestion. He stared deeply at me. Sister, don't play tricks. What tricks can I play? I'm not as strong as you. I exaggeratedly frowned again and said that the tie was really too tight, making it difficult. He didn't hesitate anymore and directly untied me. I purposely ate a lot and complimented him a lot. He seemed to be very flattered. If sister likes it, I will make it for you every day in the future. Good. I smiled as brightly as I should have. He looked at me and drifted off. Even his words were a bit stuttered. I'll go wash the dishes. I took the opportunity to take out the mace spray from the drawer and tiptoed towards the door. The moment my back foot stepped out of the threshold, my arm was suddenly yanked. Sister, where are you going? I slammed the mace and darted onto the elevator. I ran wildly for a long time before I stopped a cab. Good thing I had cash in my clothes. I urgently gave Jet's home address when I arrived, but he wasn't home. Worried that Reese would come after me, I didn't linger, intending to go ahead and hand out, but no sooner had I gotten downstairs than I was pulled into the car by Reese. My mouth was covered and my hands and feet were bound in one fell swoop. Jet happened to be back and didn't even notice the car next to him as he entered the building. I looked at his back in despair and whimpered as 2 lines of tears fell. Disgruntled, Reese shifted over my face, moved in close, and kissed me heavily in the eyes. I shuddered, only to hear his hoarse voice, Sister, don't look at him. This time, he took me to his house. Depressing gray and white tones, the air conditioning temperature was low. There was hardly a trace of popularity in his home, just as he was at this moment. He took out a ball of cotton rope and bound me to the single sofa. Sister, you shouldn't have gone to him. I seemed to have no other outlet for my fear and despair than to cry. He wiped my tears like he didn't know what to do. Sister, don't cry, okay? We'll cry bad. Disgusting. I cursed out my voice. His movements stalled and the corners of his lips seemed to raise. How disgusting. Then slowly sink into my neck nest, in the neck of a hard suck. This is also disgusting? I didn't dare to answer again. I don't know what kind of out of the ordinary things he can do in his mental state. I could only continue to coax him, Reese, I'm thirsty. As he got up and went to pour me water, I struggled hard against the thin rope on my wrist, deliberately strangling a red mark on my wrist. After he fed me water, I cried out in pain again and raised my reddened wrist to show him. The bottom of his eyes darkened, loosened that rope, and patted a piece of cotton cloth at my wrist. I'm sorry sis, I didn't want you to get hurt, just be good and don't get engaged to Jet, okay? As long as I'm good, he seems to have a heart for me. I nodded obediently, okay, I'm not getting engaged to him. He's surprised for a split second. I'll release you when your engagement is over. I continued to nod, okay, whatever you say. Early the next morning, I was woken up by the sound of rummaging. It was Reese looking for something, very anxious looking. Seeing me wake up, he ran over to me and asked, Sister, have you seen that souvenir city you gave me? Souvenir coin? I remember yesterday in Jet's house downstairs, from your pocket fell out of a thing. See his anxious look, I probably know the weight of that coin in his heart, and added, lost, quite a pity, that is the first commemorative coin, I was specially given to you. He did not talk, hurriedly ran out the door. He was afraid that I was in pain, and tied me not too tightly. It didn't take long for me to break free, but I just ran out the door. That commemorative coin. I kicked it under the sofa last night. Almost at the same time, the elevator doors opened. Reese runs up and violently covers my mouth, pulling me into the emergency hallway next to it. Out of the elevator comes Jet, who knocks on the door a few times and yells at me some more. I was pinned against the wall by Reese, desperately struggling to shout towards the stairway, only managing to get a sound out through his fingers. Reese broke my head against him again and again, forehead to forehead. Scream again, sis, and I won't mind gagging you. The footsteps outside are far away, completely disengaged. I collapsed into Reese's arms. He carries me back to his house again and slowly and methodically ties me up, this time tightly. I think I'm going crazy too. Thoroughly hysterical. Reese, you are disgusting. If I had known you were such a piece of shit, I never would have saved you in the first place. You're a lunatic. Devil. Why don't you go to hell? You should have died 3 years ago, you deserve to be bullied. He stood with his back to me for so long that I couldn't see his expression. The wind through the hall was very, very small, but it made him sway, and then he leaned forward and fell heavily to the ground. Taking advantage of his fainting, I broke my bonds again. I couldn't find a single means of communication all over the room. After calming down, I still didn't go to the police. It was the same as when he came to my house every day to borrow the bathroom, and I couldn't bear to say no, couldn't bear to hurt him. So I went to Jet first. It's been 2 days since I've been contacted, so he should be crazy looking for me. But when I got to his house, I saw a girl, my best friend Heidi. Alani hasn't been heard from in 2 days. Aren't we going to look for her? There's no need. I guess she's gone back to her writing retreat. Didn't she used to do that all the time? But you're getting engaged the day after tomorrow. What if she forgets? Alani is such a fool, she thinks we like her, but it's all about her money. The bedroom noises were so loud that they didn't even hear the broom being knocked over by me. My limbs were tingling by the time I ran out of Jet's house, my chest so oppressed it was hard to breathe. What a can't live without me. What a for my money. It dawned on me that the scene was so familiar. When I was 8 years old, this was the scene in the family's bedroom with my dad and a strange aunt. I called Mom at the time. Mom went back and lost control of her emotions and fought with that aunt. During the argument, Dad pushed Mom off the balcony. Mom died on the spot and Dad went to jail. For a long time afterward, the grandparents said that I had killed Mom, that I had broken up a good family. I was just an obnoxious, hateful, bad kid. Nobody loves me, and I don't think I'll ever love anybody. Until Heidi showed up, warm as a little sun, said she was a loyal reader and wanted to be my friend. And then Jet showed up, warm as the winter sun, saying he loved me and wanted to brush away the darkness of my family of origin. I hated to give them my heart. When Heidi was unemployed, I rented her an apartment and ordered takeout. When she was working, a coworker looked down on her, so I sent luxury goods to her company. It's okay, I'll support you. That's the most I've ever said to her, and Jet. He's having a hard time at work. He can't afford a house. It's okay, I have plenty of money. Bride price is not a necessity. The car I gave him was sold long ago and he used the money to pay for his sister to study abroad. I thought they had helped me break free from the shackles of the original shadow, but I didn't realize that they had now put another layer of shackles on me. It turns out that they just treat me as a toad that only spits out gold coins. I had nowhere to go. Wandering back home again, before I could open the door, Reese appeared behind me and carried me to his house. He was so hot, I think he had a fever, and even his walk was a little unsteady. I didn't have any strength to struggle this time, and just numbly watched him tie me to a corner of the couch. Sister, you went to him again? His eyes were cold and scary, and his face was weak and pale, adding a bit more desolation. I nodded. Don't tie me up, I won't go to him. Sister, you have lied to me several times. How else can I trust you? Several times, he won't believe anything he says. I asked again, why do you say Jet is not a good person? Based on a feeling, I've seen him chatting with other girls. That's it? Yeah. I wouldn't talk to other girls. I wouldn't talk to other girls, sister. I'll find proof that he's not a good person, I'll find it. Reese, actually he didn't give me another chance to speak. He stumbled out the door before I could explain. I curled up in the couch and fell into a quiet sleep. When I woke up again, Reese was sitting with me. He stroked my hair and looked down at me, his eyes so soft they felt like they were filled with water. When he saw me wake up, he turned his head away sheepishly, but also seemed a little excited. Sister, I found the evidence. You see, in the cell phone video, Jet and Heidi are kissing goodbye in front of his house. The shock I had just endured swept over me once again, and I closed my eyes with a headache. Reese nervously holds me in place. What's wrong with you, sis? I know you can't accept it for a while, but he cheated on me. Do you still want to keep liking him? I shook my head. No more. He panicked and released me. I'm sorry, sis, I shouldn't have shown you. I'm sorry I made you feel bad. Sister, don't like him anymore, okay? Along the way, his hot hand nestled me tightly. The destination is the hospital. The doctor said there's nothing wrong with me, it's Reese who has a bigger problem. He had a fever of almost 40 degrees. I won't run, but you need foreign medication now. I said in a negotiating tone. He was all ears, holding my hand and refusing to let go. If you don't listen, then I will continue to like Jet. I will go and get engaged to him the day after tomorrow. Anyway, according to your appearance, I don't think you can last the day after tomorrow. The agitation seemed to have worked. The hand on his arm tightened violently, and he punitively moved toward the nape of my neck. No such jokes, and then slowly stretched out an arm, his voice getting weaker and weaker. I lose fluids. See. The nurse next to me laughed meaningfully. Your little couple is really affectionate. Ah. Not a couple, at most a brother. I explained, and according to what he did in the past 2 days, it's more like my enemy. I didn't notice that the moment I explained, Reese's gaze dimmed. It was already 2 in the morning after the 4, and he fell asleep on my shoulder. I probed his forehead and the fever had gone down considerably. When he woke up, he stared at me almost unbelievably. Sister, you didn't leave? I was unsure. No, it's not here. Just now I accidentally fell asleep. You can totally escape. He had a point. But where would I run to? I had no idea. The only one who needed me, at least at the moment, was him. I'm not running, I said, so will you stop tying me up? He remains in a guarded posture. Can I trust you, sister? Of course I can. When I went back, he still wanted to take me to his house, but he didn't even have any food at home. So I took him back to my house and cooked him some congee. He followed me around, chattering, did sister make this for me? Why is sister being so nice to me? Does a bowl of congee count? Of course it counts. I smiled faintly, feeling ironic. Why is it that some people, who have their hearts out to him, are still betrayed? Another tear accidentally fell. It fell into the porridge. I was about to go and pour it out, but he snatched it away and drank it in a few gulps. Dirty. I was too late to stop it. He gritted his teeth, and the delight in his eyes just now turned unfathomable again. Sister, you're crying over him again? It's not that, it's an emotional meltdown that I simply can't control. He pressed me down on the sofa, the veins between his neck bursting. Sister, you torture me to death. You always know how to torture me. The sickly paranoid gaze was full of begging. He seemed to really care about me. I held onto his chest and ghostly asked, Reese, do you like me? He said without half hesitation, I love you so much that I don't know what to do to be good. Sister, you tell me, how can I make you happy? I said despondently, where is the love? We hadn't even seen each other a few times before. That's because you haven't seen me, but I've seen you many times quietly. Oh, so it was voyeurism. He leaned forward a few inches. You can't say it so harshly. I've been open and above board every time, but you've never set your eyes on anyone else. And indeed, for the first 3 years, I was full of Jet circling around a few times, and I still thought of him again. I still have to go to the engagement party tomorrow. I've got to tear him down for what he really is on the grandest of occasions. My worthless 3 years deserved a rousing, but Reese, with this look on his face, probably won't agree. I discussed with him again, Reese, I still want to go to the engagement party tomorrow. I'm not asking him to get engaged, I want to go and expose Dash. His lips violently blocked mine. Rolling, deep, and hot. It was like I was drowning in an infinite sea, and the only way I could probe for an occasional breath was with his charity. In a daze, Reese paused, almost shocked to have to look at me, struggling to return the kiss. I'm probably crazy. Reese, much more comfortable to kiss than Jet, also roughly untied the rope. Went to pull my shirt button half undone, I suddenly shuddered. It was a cold wind that came into the house, and with it he paused in his movements, his eyes left my face greedily, and with difficulty got up. I've got a cold, and it'll infect you. I won't let you go to the engagement party, not for any reason, unless I die. He followed me every inch of the way for days afterward, but it seemed that after that kiss he seemed to be in a much better mood and wouldn't move to tie me up. Until the evening, when I made him dinner again, and he ate it all in a fit of glee. After eating it all he took my hand and quickly came to sleep. He slept very deeply. Because I added sleeping pills to the meal, I did not dare to add too much, so after he was asleep, I immediately tied him up. Tied right to the single sofa, the rope wound tightly, tighter than a mummy. Then I found my cell phone. There were only 2 unread messages. One was from Jet, sent yesterday, closed again. The other was from Heidi, sent at the same time as Jet. Baby, when are we going to come out for a chat? You're getting engaged and I can't bear to part with it. I didn't reply to them. I took out my laptop again and replaced the short movie to be shown at the engagement party with a new one. Heidi called me out of the blue, as usual, with her sisterly love. Alani, are you done with your work? You've been exhausted these past few days, haven't you? Tomorrow you will say goodbye to the single ranks, so sad to see you. I smiled. Tomorrow you must be beside me to accompany me. You know, I have no family, only you. That's for sure. I'll be with you for the rest of my life. Okay, see you tomorrow. Soon after, Jet sent me a message, see you tomorrow, love you. I left the house before Jet woke up, locking the doors and windows tightly. The engagement session started at 11, and Jet happened to arrive at 11. Heidi gave him a low compliment. "Mr. Lin is quite handsome today." He walked towards me with affection and extended his hand. We walked together to the center of the light, and as per the party we talked about earlier, we were dressed up today as well. Even her blue dress and Jet's tie were the set. Behind us, on the big screen, an elaborate video. The quiet watching crowd instantly became agitated. Jet gave me a startled look, anxious to unplug the power. Heidi was desperately looking for it too. But I was prepared for him not to find the power supply. The screen was playing the day I recorded, Jet and Heidi too in the bedroom of the raunchy position. The video ends with the two kissed goodbye in front of the door as the end of the video. Jet pulled me to one side, his voice shaky but still strong. "Can't we talk in private? Are you trying to get me killed?" Heidi came around too. Alani, I'm sorry, that was a moment of confusion, but you're going to ruin us both like that." The two were so strange that I didn't want to talk to them. I turned away from them. He was being facetious and wanted to use this lavish engagement party to show off his family's wealth and family status. Unfortunately, the pretense failed. Faced with the swarm of reporters, his leader immediately gave notice to dismiss him. But it didn't end there. What played next was a clear breakdown of the money I had spent for the two of them. Strip transfer spending records. Jet 4.4 million and Heidi 2.6 million. I had already hired a lawyer overnight to sue to recover it. Jet and Heidi, they once again ran up left and right. "Doesn't anything count for all the years we've been together? Alani, I'm your first and only friend. Do you have to do this absolutely? Alani, I love you, I've always loved you. It was Heidi who seduced me while you were in seclusion writing. Can you forgive me? You still love me, right? You're afraid of losing me." Heidi froze and hysterically grabbed his hair. The two of them wrestled to a standstill. I didn't look back. I still had a lot of influence as a well-known writer. But I was too late to deal with them. I had to hurry back to see that Reese was really in trouble after all. The living room was a mess. Reese had the entire couch knocked into 3 pieces by me tying him up. There was blood all over his wrists, his ankles, and strangulation. There were scratches on his face as well, adding more brokenness to that already pale face. When he saw me enter, his movements jerked and he bowed his head in pain like an abandoned puppy, and as if he had grown resentful because of his master's abandonment, his eyes gradually colored with a touch of scarlet. After untying him, he remained motionless. After a long time of looking at each other, he slowly opened his mouth. "Are you engaged to him?" "No." I showed him my cell phone. The internet was full of news about them. He glanced at it, and his mood didn't calm down at all. "But you lied to me again." "Reese. Kiss me." I was slightly stunned. "It's hard to promise not to do something to you without kissing me." I kissed up. He slowly gripped my waist, tightening, deepening, active, quickly turned passive. His breath was like swimming ants, slowly devouring my earlobes, my chin. I cupped his face. "Do whatever you want." He stalled in his movements and stared at me incredulously for a few seconds. Received my smile, but slowed down his movements, religiously, carefully, sliding over every inch of my skin. He confirmed it again. Like it was on purpose, because I didn't have much energy to answer him at all. He didn't intend to ask for my answer either, and continued to speak to himself. "Sister, take me as a servant. I will always be loyal to you." "Sister, will you call out my name?" I called Reese so many times. My voice is all muffled. Laughing in the wind. Sister is so good. Jet and Heidi both disappeared from my side very fast. Things were all over the place. No business would take them, and they were saddled with a huge debt to me, and the people had gone into hiding somewhere. But the law was always there. A month later, Heidi was in jail for cheating on her husband. 2 months later, Jet was in jail for robbery. My heart didn't flutter. Ever since I was a kid, it seemed like I was always looking to be loved. Even though I made a lot of money at an early age, I was still emotionally wrapped up in the lack of emotions from my early childhood. Time and time again, I was lonely to the point where if someone treated me with the slightest bit of kindness, I wanted to return it 100 times over. And now, I let go. I thought it was time for me to care for myself. I began to travel all over the world. I began to express my sincerity with abandon, but no longer in the form of money, and little by little I explored the truth that to live is to enjoy. As for Reese, I had a fight with him. He begged me for love, but at this moment it is not fair to him. "Sister, you don't like me, why do you still, why sleep with you? You tied me up and imprisoned me. Is it wrong for me to enjoy you? I'm sorry, I just love you too much. Then, you just treat me as a rotten person. I am indeed a lousy person. How else would I have recruited those two lousy people? Reese doesn't suck. Reese is young. He deserves a better life. He's going to study abroad for 2 years. I think 2 years is enough time for him to forget me. We broke off contact from then on. A year later, I went on a mission trip to a remote mountainous area. They are almost isolated there, without developed network and convenient transportation. All they have is trekking through muddy mountain roads, and one elementary school textbook after another that has been recycled. They are all trying hard to stay alive and desperately trying to get out. When the children's eager eyes came over to me, my squirming, ringing, and resentment were instantly put down to a tiny size. I found a rare silence. Teachers came and went, but I was the only one who stayed there for half a year. During that time, I met a few small children without parents, and their tender eyes were full of expectation. Teacher, will it be better if we go out of this mountain? The tip of my nose was always sore. Yes, I will. I don't have a mom and dad either. Isn't it great to be a teacher now? Thank you, teacher. Thank you, too. Children are flowers and hope. That's right. I contacted the local government to sponsor them until they graduate from college. On the way out, our group was caught in a flash flood. We woke up next to a cave in the cliffs. Not far from the mountain was shaking, as if it would come towards us if we were not careful. The people with us were optimistic, and a university student first adjusted the atmosphere. It's a pity that I haven't confessed my love to my goddess. After a discussion lamenting the fragility of life, someone asked me, Big Writer, what about you, do you have any favorites? I drifted off. It flashed in my mind for a long time, and eventually a stubborn and paranoid teenager appeared. I wished him peace and joy for the rest of his life. We held on to hope while we went over the cliff dam once and then continued to be disappointed that we couldn't find any sign of people. Eventually someone collapsed, unable to walk any longer. As the next downpour approached, a convoy of rescue trucks frantically entered the Empire, in which sat in the first car, none other than Reese. Reese? When they finally arrived, the people in the car jumped out and came straight at me. The person who hit me in my arms was the actual temperature of Reese. My dry, numb heart seemed to suddenly engaged in a violent beat. Thankfully, the flash floods affected a small area and there were no casualties in the mountains. I glanced at Reese, who was gripping my hand tightly, checking the main power station and network system in the mountainous area over, and directing people to put down the relief supplies. I haven't seen him in a year. He's lost weight and looks more stable. Like an adult. After tossing and turning all day, I slept in the car, and when I woke up again, 10 hours had passed. I was in a hotel. Your house has been unoccupied for too long, so I've asked someone to clean it and go back afterward. He explained simply, as if he knew my whereabouts by heart. How did you end up in the mountains? I asked him. It's been a year and a half, and I'm going to go crazy if I don't see you again. He came closer on a cloud, bending over, like a victory. Sister, did you miss me? I don't look away, no. It's okay, it's enough that I miss my sister. With just a light kiss, I can't seem to resist. How come I didn't know I was so? Thoughts were easily confused by his teasing. The outline of the abs on his fingertips became clearer and clearer. In the heat of the moment, he urgently asked, Sister, what kind of relationship are we? Gunnery buddies? He gasped and laughed. Next, count me as asking for it. He stayed by my side for 3 days. On the last night, he said he would come back to see me once a month. I wondered, is your schooling something you can be this casual about? He lifted his jaw with a vigor I've rarely seen. Sister, geniuses can be casual, ordinary people can't. Oh, he's the genius of geniuses. He wasn't kidding, he did come back once a month. Even if I move around multiple cities, he finds me like radar. He's getting cheeky. Sometimes I was tired and rushed him. He laughed and said he had to fulfill his duty as a fuck buddy to the extreme. Otherwise, what if my sister gets sick of me and goes to another man? The tip of my nose is inexplicably sore. Reese dash. Sister, just like that, has been shouting my name. At the end of the 2 years of foreign study, he took over a big project as soon as he returned to China, and was once busy. I once again held a book signing. Book lovers interactive session. It is inevitable that some fans gossip. Shallow ask, would teacher now have a boyfriend? Handsome or not? I helplessly held my forehead and laughed. The stage eked a sound. Is it a boyfriend? But I've never admitted it to him. How about a preemptive strike? So I took the microphone, have a boyfriend, very handsome. As soon as the exchange ended, I was picked up by Reese, who appeared out of nowhere, and pushed into the car. I said he was stable before. In fact, not at all. He domineeringly did not allow me to move, his eyes are unquenchable anger. Who? What who? Who is your boyfriend? So he put down his job to come to me because of a word I said? I thought I'd surprise him, but it turned out to be a shock. But he was extraordinarily cute with this look. I purposely mouth off, what does who my boyfriend is have to do with you? He let out a light snort. The atmosphere became a bit dangerous. I should have realized that he was simply a man who was not to be teased or messed with. I changed my words urgently, it's you. My boyfriend is you. His eyebrows abruptly spread apart and he tentatively confirmed, Alani, who am I to you? Boyfriend. I push him and get out of the car urgently. There's still the next event. How can I keep messing around with him here at the end of the day's work? A glance at the cell phone, Reese sent a dozen messages. Girlfriend, what's for dinner tonight? Girlfriend, when is the new book coming out? Girlfriend, waiting for you at home. Girlfriend ignored me, is not in love? Isn't he working overtime? I regret it too much. I can't imagine how strong he can fight tonight. So I dawdled and didn't go back until 10 p.m. Open the door. There was the sound of water in the bathroom. He still showers at my house every day. I sat down for less than a minute before he came out simply wearing a towel. This scenario has come up countless times. But this time, we were boyfriend and girlfriend. He came over to me with an air of calmness and stood in front of me. Sister, will you tug on my bath towel? What happened later? Then I had many, many book signing sessions. Reese could always be seen on stage, and he would warmly stand up to greet my husband when I introduced him. One by one, my sponsored students grew up. They went to my book signings too. They gathered in a group, and Reese stood in the center, proudly showing off, I was the first classmate she sponsored. I'm also her legal husband. None of you are as lucky as me. I, in fact, consider myself lucky too.